Marvel's got a CGI problem. You can read about it everywhere nowadays, especially on Reddit. But what you don't hear is what a VFX artist goes through while creating the epic CGI battles we love so much. But someone's finally talking about it. In this video, we're looking at what a typical VFX artist goes through while working on a Marvel project. There's a lot to unpack, so stay tuned. First, criticizing the CGI usually puts the blame on the wrong person, and we've seen countless examples of this on social media, especially with the release of the She-Hulk trailer. A lot of people pointed out the CGI looked like it belonged in a PS3 game, or that She-Hulk herself looked like Fiona from Shrek, and if you look at the YouTube trailer, it does look like her skin's a bit too smooth. The same problem plagued Thor: Love and Thunder too. When we watched the movie in cinemas, we immediately got distracted by Natalie Portman's jacked arms, but when we stopped being starstruck, we saw that her character's lighting was just off. The compositing and the CGI were off. Even Taika Waititi joined in about it on a Vanity Fair video. He and Tessa Thompson broke down a scene from the movie where the pair joked that Korg's changing colors were a goof, and that's not that great at all. One comment under the video, which got over 2,000 likes, said that VFX artists who are regularly underpaid and overworked meet impossible deadlines, only for the directors of the movie to make fun of the final product in a YouTube video. And that's the problem. But what's worse is that the dark jokes hide a decades-long issue. And no, we're not talking about Waititi's jokes about the CGI. Now, everyone's obviously excited about the next two phases of the MCU. We won't lie, we're hyped about it too. A lot of us grew up watching Iron Man and Thor and Civil War. The Infinity Saga was one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences that we're glad we were part of. But we also can't deny that the VFX artists who saw the announcement of two Avengers movies releasing in 2025 probably ripped their hair out in frustration. Over Twitter, users were making jokes about it that sort of highlighted the main issue. VFX artists don't get paid enough, aren't appreciated enough, and need to meet hilariously tight deadlines. It started happening on Reddit threads first. The one we're going to take a look at is by user Independent Ad 419, titled, "I'm quite frankly sick and tired of working on Marvel shows." He posted it way back in May, and ever since then, a lot of other VFX artists have opened up about their experiences with Marvel Studios. The user stated that they have the worst methodology of production and VFX management by a long shot, and that the look for the show is never finalized before more than half of the deadline has passed. What's more, other VFX artists across the industry were quick to agree. User SamVFX 2015 alleged that for Thor: Love and Thunder, the studio asked for completed mini-sequences 2 or 3 weeks before the deadline. Now, we've got to add some perspective here. Asking a VFX artist to churn out a gorgeous sequence with multiple moving parts in 2 or even 3 weeks is the same as asking a chef to prepare the perfect beef Wellington in less than 20 minutes. Even Gordon Ramsay couldn't get it done within that time frame. Creating VFX takes time, hard work, and a lot of processing power. Another user, Mickey M00M00, went so far as to say that they specifically request not to work on Marvel movies and shows. Why? Well, the user explained that the studio expects a smorgasbord of options, so they can change their minds and pick whichever one they like best. But it goes much deeper than that, and it's sad that they've worked on Marvel projects for 3 straight years and called it the 7th layer of hell. Another user described working for the studio as a black hole of sleep deprivation and poor eating habits. We even found a user named RandVR who described what a typical day is like working on a Marvel project. He gave a live reaction to waking up at 5:30 a.m. on a Saturday, thinking that he doesn't want to continue working with the studio anymore. Mickey M from earlier added that they've seen grown men punching walls and throwing monitors out of stress, and that they themselves have broken down multiple times. They ended their thread by saying, Marvel as a client. Their credit name is not worth it. Wow. And if you thought that's where it ends, you're wrong. Unfortunately, the stories keep coming in, and everything peels back like the layers of an onion. As of this video, Marvel hasn't addressed the issue, but we hope that happens quicker rather than later, you know? Because creating intricate VFX isn't cheap, and it isn't easy, you know what? Let's put that yet into another perspective to drive the point home. Let's go back to 2007's Transformers. Say what you will about Michael Bay's direction, story, or screenplay, but you can't deny that the CGI was damn near flawless, especially when it's outdoors and the Transformers are duking it out. Their movements look physically impossible, and the CGI characters look embedded in the scene. And that's because Bay knew that you don't rush art. Well, we're talking about the VFX here. The overall movie's still pretty okay, but the CGI still stands up. It even looks better than a lot of Marvel movies. And that's because the VFX artists got the time they needed to produce great work. Bay said that the VFX were so complex that it took a mind-blowing 38 hours for ILM to render just one frame of movement. So yeah, it's a lot of insanely skilled people doing an insane amount of work. But if they're given realistic deadlines and support from the movie studios, then we wouldn't be making a video about it. But that would be a perfect world, wouldn't it? And in a perfect world, a VFX artist wouldn't be interviewed by Vulture about how terrible it is to work on a Marvel movie. A lot of people may write off Reddit threads as inadmissible or inauthentic. Why? Well, because anyone could say anything they want on a Reddit thread, so you can't verify whether it's factual. But let's talk about that Vulture article. Back in July, an industry veteran told Vulture's Chris Lee that they worked overtime for 6 whole months on just one Marvel movie. It was 7 days a week and a total of 64 hours worked per week. And their comments about the working conditions corroborate the Reddit users' stories. They described coworkers breaking down and crying right next to them. And sometimes, people would have anxiety attacks over the phone, especially when talking to Marvel as a client. The VFX artist explained that Marvel's got plenty of power over the VFX houses, and that's because it's got one project coming out after another for many years. At Comic-Con, Kevin Feige announced Marvel's plan to churn out a movie or Disney Plus show every few months until 2026, and the artist said that the effects houses try to bend over backwards to keep Marvel happy. There's just so much money to be made, and the credit name in their reels is a huge added benefit. Surely, if they've worked with Marvel, other movie studios are gonna line up to have their effects done by them, right? But if they upset Marvel, well, that's another story. The artist remembered one particular VFX house that couldn't finish the number of VFX shots and reshoots Marvel wanted in time, so their studio got the work instead. And the other studio? Well, they were essentially blacklisted by Marvel. What's more, part of the problem stems from directors themselves. And no, we don't mean they're bad, just that Marvel's directors are usually handpicked from film festivals, and their credits often include a small number of indie movies. But that's a good thing, right? Well, yes, it is, but it also means that they have limited experience working with VFX. They're not used to visualizing something that's not there on set with them. So, as a way to make things easier for them, Marvel often asks for final renders. These are work-in-progress images and short reels that aren't pretty, but they show the creatures and characters where they need to be in a scene. But while they aren't pretty, Marvel often asks for high-quality final renders, which take a lot of time to produce. Again, think of Transformers and how long it takes to render a single usable frame. Even having the amount of work to produce a final render would still mean a few hours of rendering time. Finally, it'll only get better through mutual effort. Now, there are a lot of things Marvel and the VFX artists could do to make things better for the artists working on high-stakes projects. One thing the VFX artist mentioned was unionization, which is an important aspect of getting workers the benefits they deserve. It would also hold VFX houses accountable, making sure they don't take bids without considering the impact they would have on their artists. In the end, it's about making sure that your employees don't suffer from breakdowns and anxiety attacks while creating the visuals that millions of people around the world are going to enjoy. And that's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. So, should Marvel cut down on the sheer volume of content in order to facilitate the VFX houses, or should they just give them looser deadlines? Drop your opinions down below. Until next time.